Hello, all, and welcome to the podcast today. We have an amazing episode planned for today. It is our 100th episode, so we have a special today. We are answering a question from a very loyal, very special guest. This is from at Jane Austen Fanboy 39. I see you. I've been seeing you liking the videos, watching all of them. You're amazing. So here's his question. How do social expectations, family pressures, or class distinctions compel characters to suppress or compromise their authentic selves in Persuasion and Little Women? What an amazing question. So before I get into it, just to give a little context of what is going on today, what has been happening in the past few episodes, we have been going over, reading, and kind of summarizing, analyzing Little Women. We did Persuasion before that. And that has been from episode 1 all the way to now. And it is amazing. We have finished both books. I'm so honored to say that we are here. So back to the question. How do social expectations, family pressures, or class distinctions compel characters to suppress or compromise their authentic selves in Persuasion and Little Women? So both of these are set in kind of the 19th century era. So those social structures of gender roles, family duties are really strong themes and strong things that we see happening in both books. And this is what kind of forces characters, specifically today we're going to be talking about Anne Elliot and Jo March, and talking about how they are forced to suppress and compromise their authentic selves because of the standards and the morals they're having to be set to. So first, let's start with Persuasion. So in Persuasion, the biggest thing that really happens to Anne is there almost is this like act of self-betrayal because of her being persuaded. And the biggest thing we see is when Anne rejects Captain Wentworth. Obviously, as we were reading, Lady Wentworth not Lady Wentworth. Excuse my language. Lady Russell has persuaded Anne, and her own sense of duty to break the engagement and kind of forces Anne to be like, this is what you need to do. And the reason for this is they see that Wentworth has no fortune. He's got an uncertain path within the Navy, and the Elliots hold themselves to a pride in their status, a pride in continuing to build up their status instead of moving down in the ranks. And this is clearly a compromise that Anne has had to make of her true feelings. And a quote from the book in chapter 4, this is what it says. She had been forced into prudence in her youth. She learned romance as she grew older, the natural sequel of an unnatural romance. So this just paints it so beautifully, that first sentence. She had been forced into prudence in her youth. What this prudence is talking about, she had been forced into the moral standards, the social standards that were being set for her, not just by Lady Russell, but by her family as well. She was forced into those because of the way that her family was trying to live their life by moving up in family status. Even though she had true love, true feeling for Wentworth, they didn't want her to pursue that because they saw Wentworth as almost like a disgrace, as a rank down, excluding the fact that Anne truly loved him. So from Persuasion, we see that Anne is forced to compromise her authentic feelings towards Captain Wentworth because of the social norm her family seeks of having a high social status. And this kind of brings us perfectly into Little Women to talk about Jo March, one of, if not the main character in our book. She is probably the most authentic character, and we see her punished for that. She lives a very ambitious and boyish-like life and self-driven, and this goes against that norm of being ladylike, or what was seen as ladylike in that time period. She desires to write, another thing that wasn't common for women. And like I said, she has these boyish actions, almost like a tomboy is how we would describe it nowadays. And this is a very high contrast of what that era saw a woman as gentle, self-sacrificing, and a lot more, I guess the best word for it would be proper than Joe tends to act. And we see just a way that Joe starts to suppress herself and just really get away from what she feels is authentic. And we see it in chapter 15. And this is what it says. It says, "So she kept her troubles to herself and tried to be good. She burned all her trashy stories and gave up writing for a long while, feeling that they were not fit for anyone to read." And this is just sad. We know that Joe has this want to write, and from the start of the book up to chapter 15, she talks about how she continues to want to write, and we see that it's a true passion, a true drive, a love that she has. And right here, this is showing her kind of just conforming and suppressing herself because she doesn't see that her stories are good enough for the family ideal or good enough to fit what is seen as best for her and her sisters and Marmee. And it's a really sad thing because it kind of relates to Anne by showing that it's not them, but it's the fact that they both love their families so much that they want to be able to do what's best for their families. I mean, we see the love that Joe has for her family, and we see it a lot when she has to take care of Beth when she's sick. And with Anne, we know that she still loves her family, even though she doesn't agree with many of the things that they do. She still eventually ends up going to Bath. She still eventually does things with them because overall it's about the love. And they both realize that sometimes you have to sacrifice your own wants so that the family's wants and needs can be fulfilled. And some other ways we see this with Joe is when Marmee teaches her to repress her natural temper that she had towards Amy when Amy fell through the ice, and Joe and Marmee really talk about how anger is something that can be controlled and a lot of times is seen as unnecessary, and there's no reason to have to act out upon that. So kind of with Joe is suppressed to her authentic self, suppressed of her authentic self because she's forced to be molded into the perfect ladylike woman based on the standards set by her sisters, Marmee, and as well as the societal standards held in that time period.